My name is Liz, but they called me Handstand on the Appalachian Trail. With absolutely zero backpacking experience, I traveled down to Georgia to begin my 2,190-mile hike up to Maine. I spent 161 days walking, hiking, and climbing through snow, rain, more rain, and occasionally some sunshine. While on the trail, I turned 30 years old, had a bout with Lyme disease, and even got married. It was the experience of a lifetime. Now that I've survived my thru hike, I'm super excited to share everything that I've learned with you. Okay, you guys asked for it. This has probably been my most requested video to date, the post-trail gear video. Alright, so I did a pre-trail video where I talked about all the gear that I was going to be bringing with me, and now, post-trail video, all the gear that I ended up with because I obviously made some mods along the way. First and most importantly, my pack. So I started with the Hyperlight 3400 Southwest pack, black of course, and pretty much carried that the whole way, but I did end up with the 3400 black Wind Rider by the time I finished. I need like a table or something. So the Southwest that I started out with is basically the exact same pack. It just has fabric pockets, the two side pockets in the back pocket, instead of mesh like the Wind Rider. I don't feel like super passionate about one or the other. I liked the Southwest because it kind of hid all the stuff in your outside pockets, where the mesh you can see through the pockets. I didn't feel the need to upgrade to a new pack, but I've been working with Hyperlight on some things and they ended up sending me a brand new pack towards the end of my hike, so I requested the Wind Rider just to try it out. The only major difference is the Wind Rider being mesh might allow things to dry out a little bit easier, whereas the Southwest, where it's fabric and covers everything completely, would protect stuff from the sun a little bit better. So the Southwest is more meant for the PCT and the Wind Rider is more meant for the AT because we got all the rain. This pack is literally my favorite piece of gear that I had with me on the AT. It's lightweight, it's black, it's super durable. I never ever had any rips, holes, nothing. Mine is the 3400, which is meant to be a 55-liter pack, but mine's also the size small, so it's actually a 50-liter pack. It was plenty of space for everything that I had. I almost probably could have gone down a size, to be honest. The Hyperlight packs are waterproof, and like all the waterproof packs, it's waterproof to a point. There's, with anything, gonna be sort of a saturation point at some point. I usually never had an issue, but if it like downpoured all day, I think water seeped through the seams a little bit, so occasionally on a really heavy rain day you'd get a little bit of water at the bottom of the pack, but I always had everything in dry bags, so it never really was a big deal. Alright, let's take a look at what's inside this bad boy. So let's talk the big three first. So we already talked about my pack, and then we've got shelter system and sleep system. So shelter system, I used the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Echo 2 for a majority of my hike. This is what I started out with. I loved it, loved it, loved it. It's really lightweight. It uses your trekking poles to set it up. It's a little finicky for the setup at first, I will be honest, but once you get used to it, it's a really easy setup. It's like a tarp style tent with the bug bivvy that clips inside, although I usually just left it already clipped in, so one step down, and then it has like a vestibule door on the front. It's a two-person tent, plenty of space for me and all my stuff. To put two people in is a little bit tight, I'll be honest. We fit fine when me and Luke tried to use it, the two of us, but it's not super high, so it was kind of hard to like move around inside of it. For the second half of my hike, I ended up using a prototype tent by Hyperlight Mountain Gear. Unfortunately, I still can't show it to you or give you too many details on it, but I ended up liking that almost better than the Echo 2. It was a one-person tent. There were a lot of things that I loved about it, and hopefully I'm allowed to share with you soon because I can't wait. And then I should also mention that when Luke came out, he and I usually slept in his tent. So he had the Big Agnes Copper Spur 2-person tent. That one fit both of us great. We had no issues with it. It's a little bit heavier. It's got all the tent poles and everything with it. And not quite as waterproof. It was waterproof, but I really feel like the Cuban fiber is the way to go. For the rest of my big three, I had a Thermarest X-Lite something blow up mattress, so this worked great. I never had to patch it or anything. Had it the whole time, no issues. Takes about, for me, like 30 breaths, I would say, to blow it up. So sometimes at the end of the day, I'm just like, ugh, I don't feel like blowing up my mattress. But really, it was comfortable, lightweight, totally worth it. For my sleeping bag, I've got just a Hyperlite dry sack that I kept it in. Some people use compression sacks, which work really good with sleeping bags, but I just never got there. This is my sleeping bag. It's LL Bean, which is kind of random because I've never really heard of anyone using LL Bean, nor did I see one on the trail, but it is their women's mummy 15 degree, 850 down sleeping bag. I loved this thing. It kept me warm, super comfortable. And then I also had a sleeping bag liner. So this is like a Cocoon, 30% silk, 70% polyester, Thermalite sleeping bag liner. I think this one adds like 10 degrees. They have a million different ones, so I don't really know. I used this the whole time. It was great. It added a little extra warmth if you needed it, and used both this with the sleeping bag. And then in the dead of summer, I didn't send home my winter bag and get a summer bag or anything. I kept my winter bag. I just usually slept inside this and then maybe put my sleeping bag on top of me as like a blanket, or just use this, and I was fine. All right, let's talk about clothes. I kept my extra clothes in one of the Hyperlite pods. I loved this thing so much. They gave it to me at Trail Days. I didn't start out with it, but what's awesome about it, not only is it waterproof and lightweight and Cuban fiber and all that good stuff, but it perfectly fits the shape of the pack. So this I would usually stick at the bottom of my pack, and it just fills in all the space so you're not losing volume. Before I show you what's in here, I am wearing my main hiking outfit, so I guess we'll talk about these clothes first. So I used these Under Armour Heat Gear t-shirts. I really liked it. They're lightweight, they dry really fast, they're comfortable. It's technically a girl shirt, but it's not a super like girly cut, so I loved these t-shirts. And then I used for shorts the Under Armour also Heat Gear compression shorts. Love these shorts, had them the entire hike. I know that a lot of girls would prefer like a running short or something that's a little bit looser, but I personally really loved these. Let's see how flexible I am right now. So everybody wanted to know about my socks. I got so many questions on my socks. They're not compression socks like everybody thinks. They're just long, tight socks. They're made by Darn Tough. They're really warm, the merino wool standard with all the Darn Tough. They're like full cushion, so they were super comfortable, prevented blisters. The reason I picked these high socks is just I like the look of them. They also kind of like gaiters almost would protect my lower leg from getting scratched up on bushes and stuff like that. And they would also kind of keep the mud off my legs, kind of kept me warm. I really just like the style. Okay, so for the rest of my clothes, this is my down puffy coat. It's made by Eastern Mountain Sports, EMS, and it folds into its own pocket, which I intended to use it as my pillow, but I never really needed to. Anyway, so it packs up nice and small. It's got a hood. Loved this jacket. I also carried like a zip up sweatshirt almost. This is Patagonia. Really lightweight and kept you warm, but also was really breathable. It zipped all the way up, which was kind of important to me. I wanted to be able to wear something but not zipped up all the way or not have to pull it over my head. This was the only like really expensive piece of clothing that I brought, and some people said it was like redundant to have this in the down jacket, but there were some really cold nights that I wore both at camp, so I don't feel it was redundant at all. Also, you know, there were times I was cold hiking that I didn't really want to wear a down jacket, but this was perfect. I have a second t-shirt like the one that I am wearing, so already talked about that, but I did have 2 shirts with me. So I could, you know, if one got wet, I could wear the dry one at night, or I would keep one clean if I could and just wear one shirt all the time. And then when I went into town, switch to my clean shirt so that I could wash my dirty shirt, whatever. The underwear that I brought was Under Armour. Super, super thin. I know everyone wears the ex officios mostly, but to me, when I looked at those, they were really thick. This is like weighs nothing and they dry out so fast. So that was my one thing, is I like to be able to wash my underwear at the end of the day. So I'm wearing a pair and I had an extra pair and I could wash them every day, and even if it was like wet out, they usually dried by the morning. So loved these. Socks, I already showed you what I'm wearing. I had an extra pair with me so I could have a dry or clean pair. And then I also had a shorter pair of socks, which are also darn tough. They just come up to my ankles. I wore these sort of in the early stages of the hike as sleep socks, but then not long into it, I didn't feel the need to wear any socks at all overnight. So these were just like, if it was really hot one day, maybe I would wear these, or if everything else was muddy and gross, I would wear these. I brought with me a pair of leggings that I could use if it was really cold out, or mostly I just used them as like my town pants when I was doing laundry. So these are Nike Pros, and if you see the crap all over them, I wore them to work the other day when I was doing some stuff around my studio, and I spilt an entire candle that was hot in liquid wax all over myself. So I haven't even tried to wash them yet. I don't think it's gonna come out. I was gonna just throw them away, but I held on to them so I could show you what I wore on the hike. So they did not have wax on them when I was hiking. They worked great, but they are junk now. I also carried rain pants and a rain jacket. Where'd my jacket go? And my rain jacket, they're North Face. The rain pants I carried majority of the hike, but I did send them home briefly at one point. It was too hot out. I wasn't really wearing them at all. They're a little on the heavy side. They're a little bit thicker, but it's great for cold weather because they kept me warm. My rain jacket, same thing, North Face, a little heavy for a rain jacket, but I did like it. The rain gear did eventually have a saturation point, I will be honest. So it would keep you dry mostly, but sometimes if it was pouring out, you'd eventually get wet. The rain gear did feel kind of pointless on those times. I more used this as like a windbreaker when it was really cold. I did end up with a poncho at one point. So this is just Outdoor Products Backpacker's poncho. It's like one of the big ones that goes over your pack. And this I had mixed feelings about also. I liked it because it did keep my pack dry. Like I said, the pack is waterproof, but like the straps and everything get wet. So it starts getting kind of like, especially when it rains many days in a row, it gets to the point where the straps don't dry out. Everything just feels wet and gross on the outside. So even though it was waterproof and my stuff didn't get wet, I did eventually at one point really like having the poncho that went over the pack to keep the pack dry. Then I could have my pack inside my tent with me at night and it wasn't getting everything wet. So, poncho versus rain gear, there's pros and cons to both. I don't know, you end up just getting wet anyways. I don't know what else to tell you. For my food related stuff, I got the Z-Packs food bag. I don't know if they have different sizes, but this is the only one I ever saw people carrying. This was probably the most popular food bag for sure on the trail. It's Velcro at the top, waterproof, Cuban fiber. And then it comes with, if you buy like the kit from Z-Packs, it comes with the rock bag and the line. Now, the bag itself is awesome. It's perfect size, no issues with the bag, loved it. The rock bag and the line. So the rock bag, this is my second one I've gone through, and I do have duct tape on the inside. I don't know if it's because I suck at bear bag hanging, but I would have to throw my rock bag like 50 times a night, and the rock bag always gets holes in it from the rocks inside it and it banging on the ground or whatever. It's really, really thin and lightweight. It's not the most durable thing ever. The line also meant to be really lightweight, but it is kind of thin and it tangles really, really easily. I got a system down pretty good where I didn't usually have too many issues with it, but I saw so many people struggling with this line because it just tangles. Also for food, I carried a titanium spork, and then I got a pot at one point, so I'm gonna do a more detailed food video, but I cold soaked things. I didn't bring a stove or anything, so I did end up carrying this pot. I got it at Trail Days. It's a Vargo titanium bot, 700 milliliters, and it's got the handles that come out, and it screws on. It's an airtight, air sealed, whatever lid, so you can cold soak stuff with it. You can put whatever with your water, and it's completely sealed, so you can close it and stick it in your bag if you want to cold soak something for a few hours in your pack. Or it's a titanium pot, so you can cook with it on a fire or something if you're not carrying a stove, or you can cook with it on a stove if you decide to carry a stove. So I love this thing. So that is food accessories. In the toiletry type category, I carried toilet paper in a Ziploc bag and a hand sanitizer, and that stayed in my hip belt, so it was easily accessible. Inside my pack, this was my Toiletries bag. I got the little small Hyperlite stuff sacks, which were great. Inside of it, I always kept my toiletries in an odor-proof bag, so this is like the lock sack odor-proof bag. I'm going to be honest with you, I did that because I usually slept with my toiletries. I know that a lot of people hang their toiletries in with their food every night, but I found that to be a pain in the ass because I like to, you know, brush my teeth right before I go to bed or whatever. I don't know. Didn't like to have to like move things around. So I never had a problem doing this. I am not saying that's what you should do. I will say I met a lot of people on the trail who didn't hang food bags at all at some point along the trail. I always hung my food at night. The last thing I would want is a bear sniffing around my tent while I'm sleeping. So I always hung my food, but I did keep my toiletries with me. I do believe in these bags, but do it at your own risk. Okay, so in my toiletries bag, I usually carried some sort of wet wipes or something. I also carried a microfiber towel, but so both of those I could use for kind of cleaning myself up at the end of the day. Wet wipes were a little bit easier, but then you gotta carry them in your trash. To each their own. For teeth care, I carried, you know, a small toothpaste, a small floss, and then one of these toothbrushes that kind of comes out and has a handle. Those all worked fine. I carried a Diva cup. This is a menstrual cup for, you know, that time of the month. That worked great, although I do recommend practicing before the trail with it. I carried a soap, usually a Dr. Bronner's type soap, but you could kind of wash yourself or your clothes or your dishes or anything with this. It's all natural. I like the peppermint one. Here's a mixed bag of pills. So I usually would take a multivitamin every day. That's the big red one. I had some allergy issues on the trail, so I carried some allergy pills and some ibuprofen usually, which is not in here. And I carried ibuprofen PM in case I couldn't sleep, but I never used it. I was always too worried that, you know, something was gonna come in my tent and I wouldn't wake up. So those are the mixed drugs bags that I carried. I also carried birth control. Better safe than sorry. I carried a disposable razor. It weighs nothing. I personally didn't like having hairy legs and armpits, so that is something that I chose to carry. Maybe not a necessity, but I carried a tiny little pair of tweezers, which I guess is kind of for ticks, but really I just used it to pluck my eyebrows with. Nail clippers, well, that's definitely a necessity. And then I carried a crochet hook, which is for my hair, and most of you would not need to carry that. All right, so that covers toiletries. For electronics, so I started carrying the GoPro with a tripod. At the very end of my hike, Luke bought it for me for my birthday. I freaking love this thing. It was awesome. It's waterproof. This is the Hero 5, I think, and I love it. I also videoed with my phone, which is how you are seeing me right now. In my electronics bag, I've got a headlamp. It's a black diamond. I think this is the Spot. I started off carrying like extra batteries and stuff, but really I never needed extra batteries. I did switch out the batteries once or twice just to be safe that I would never run out, but there's no like point in carrying extra batteries. It's way too heavy. I would just plan on like once or twice on the trail switching them out, unless you're doing like a lot of night hiking or something and using it all the time, but I did not do that. I brought headphones on the trail, which I wasn't going to do originally. I never listened to music while I hike, so I didn't see the point in bringing these, but I'm so glad I did because of all the video editing that I do. When I'm like trying to chop up clips and whatever, sometimes I'm replaying clips like 50,000 times, and everyone at camp would be so fucking annoyed hearing me editing my own videos. So these were absolutely necessary. I had kind of like a memory card, an SD card, and a adapter thing. This was to switch the GoPro videos to my phone so that I could edit them. I think there's a way to Bluetooth do it. Where I got the GoPro on the trail, didn't really have time to like learn everything, so this was an easy way to transfer everything to my phone. This is a triple port charger, so usually when I'm in town, I'm like trying to charge stuff quick, you're limited on time. Those battery packs take forever to charge, so to be able to charge all of your different things at one time is essential, especially like if you're at a public place, you can't take up 50 outlets. So triple port charger, and then I had 2 battery packs. So these are the Anker 10,000s. I started off with one and then decided I wanted an extra because with all the video editing that I was doing, I was running through battery like crazy. Most people probably wouldn't need to unless you're doing video. One of these it says 4 charges technically, but I would say 3 full charges to my iPhone 10. And then cords. So I got cords for the Anker batteries, I got a cord for the GoPro, and a cord for my phone to charge everything. Okay, for water, drinking water, obviously drinking water, I carried the Sawyer Squeeze. This is the normal size one, not the mini. Never really had any issues with it, only had to backwash it or whatever like a few times on the trail. Didn't get clogged very often. And then I ended up with the CNOC bladder. This is a 2-liter bladder, and I only used this for the last couple weeks, I think, but I think this was my favorite bladder that I carried. I was carrying the Evernew bladders and popped a few of them, so the CNOC is like supposedly unpoppable. I carried 2 smart water bottles, so a liter one, and then I think this is a 700 milliliter one that I kept on my pack. So this clips to the strap, and it has like a ring so it can go around the neck of the bottle, so you can have it on the front of your pack with you. The other one I kept in a side pocket. I got this thing at like a hiking store in Gatlinburg, and I loved being able to carry my water in front. And then a friend on the trail, Brian, gave me this elastic thing to keep it from bouncing around as you're hiking, because if it was just attached here, it would kind of bounce around, so that was totally essential. First aid kit. So I will be honest, this is one thing I almost never opened, so I don't even know what's in here. Let's find out. This is kind of first aid and repair, I guess. I had like a little roll of duct tape. A lot of people put this on their trekking pole, which is just another way to carry it, which is great for you. I carried a spare lighter. I carried a smart water, like a regular top. I forgot to mention that the other tops that I showed you on the bottles, those are great because they dual as like a backwash for the filter. The Sawyer Squeeze filters do come with a syringe thing or whatever you want to call it to do that with in case they get clogged, but instead of carrying that, you can just put the top on the smart water bottle and you can use it for that. But those tops do break sometimes. I didn't really break one ever, but Luke broke like 50. So I had this just as a spare in case the top broke. I carried toe warmers, which actually I did use these once or twice early on in the hike when it was really cold. Mostly just like in my sleeping bag at night, not while you were hiking. I carried a plethora of different Band-Aids, which I never used. I did get a couple cuts here and there, but I just didn't bother. These are like all different like alcohol, towelette things, and sting and bite pads. I did get one bee sting, didn't bother using one. Maybe I should have. A couple cuts and stuff, but I really never used any of this shit. And then some triple antibiotic single serving pouches. That actually, I did use triple antibiotic a couple times, but Luke carried a tube of it, so I just used his instead of digging it out of here, but I did have it just in case. I also carried some fire starters in my first aid safety kit. So I carried different ones before, but I discovered these the other day. Quick fire. I was at the Topsfield Fair and this like ex-military girl was selling these and doing like a whole demonstration, and they're freaking awesome. They work when they're wet. In any situation, they burn for like 7 minutes, even in water. So you can dry out wood or whatever, get a fire started. I don't know, it's not my product, so I can't really like give you the whole spiel, but they're really lightweight and tiny. So these I think were better than the fire starters that I was carrying on the trail. Books, writing, stationery type stuff. So I keep everything in a Ziploc. I carried the AT guide the whole way. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people used like the PDF version on their phone, or people would send themselves sections of it so they didn't have to carry the whole book. You can buy just the loose leaf pages, so you can just have with you the section that you need. Some people just rip out pages as they go. I carried the whole thing the whole way because I wanted this to be like my souvenir. So I marked every night like where I stayed. And then I was getting like, they have the AT passport, so you can get stamps at the different hostels and stuff that you stay at. So I was just stamping inside here. I thought it would just be fun to look back at later. I got really lazy about getting stamps further along in the hike, but I did circle every single place that I stayed on the whole hike. So I carried this the whole way. I also carried a notebook and pen. So this is what I would use to like work on planning ahead when I was trying to figure out mileage for each day and where I was gonna stay and resupply and all that good stuff. I carried another little waterproof bag here that Luke gave me. He would bring me every time he came out a few pictures and then take back the old ones. So I always had some pictures from home that were meaningful to me. Trekking poles, I started off with black diamonds, loved them, they were great. I ended up losing like the bottom section on one of them, came out around like right at Harper's Ferry, about halfway through, so I ended up having to buy new ones, and the store that I went to only had these Compardels, and these worked great the second half of the trip. Nothing bad to say about either of them, although on these ones the tip did break off. I think that was just in the last like week or so on the trail. I don't even know when it happened, and it didn't really matter at that point. I didn't even notice it. It's a sit pad. If you don't know what it is, it's literally just a piece of like foam that you sit on, which sounds so stupid to me, and I refused to bring one of these, and I refused to carry one for the first part of the trail. Luke ended up buying one and started using it, and then started forcing me to use it here and there. I would go to sit on something, a rock or a wet freaking log or something, and he'd slide it right under my butt, like just trying to force me to be into it. And eventually he got me. It was probably not until the second half of the trip, but at some point when he left me the sit pad, and I got totally hooked on it. It weighs like nothing. I would just strap it to the top of my pack, but it was nice to be able to, like, if the ground was wet, sit on something dry, or like the logs and rocks are not always like comfortable. Things are sharp, so it was nice to have this. I gave in. I'm a believer in the sit pad now. Camp shoes, I ended up with Crocs. This was my third pair of camp shoes. I started off with Teva sandals, which I kind of wish I had kept, to be honest, because it would have been kind of fun to hike in them sometimes. They're meant to be able to hike in. But early on in the trail, when it was super, super cold, we had snow one night, like the Velcro would just get like wet or icy from the weather, and so the Velcro wasn't working great, and getting in and out of your tent quick in the middle of the night to go pee, it was kind of a pain to put on the sandals. So I ended up switching to like a water shoe at some point, which those were a little bit easier to slip on. I did like them, but the material on them would stay a little bit wet, so I couldn't really wear my socks with them if they got wet. So I ended up getting Crocs, still pretty early on. These were fine for the rest of the trip. They are really easy. I was like so against them because they're so dorky looking, but they're really easy to slip on and off. For water crossings, they're a little loose, but they worked fine. I only had like 3 rivers maybe that I actually had to change into different shoes to cross. For my hiking shoes, These were my 4th pair of shoes that I finished the trail with. So these are Salomon's X Ultra 3s. I started off with Merrell's, then I went to Brooks, then I went to Salomon on my 3rd pair, and I loved them. My 3rd pair was the X Ultra 2s, and they were so durable. They lasted forever. I freaking loved that shoe. So comfortable. Plus they have like the little pull string tie, which everybody that doesn't have Salomon's is like, oh, I wonder what would happen if they broke. They probably break or whatever, but I've never seen anyone or met anyone that they broke. So it was like super nice having this and not having to tie your shoes every day. Anyways, for my 4th pair, I meant to order the same pair, but I ordered the Ultra 3s instead of the Ultra 2s on accident. And these were great too, but I do feel like the material and the stitching or whatever on the Ultra 2s was a little more durable, in my opinion. Anyways, loved Salomon's. I'll probably never, ever wear another trail runner. Okay, and lastly, just other random shit that didn't fit into a different category. I carried an extra like microfiber towel. This is what I would use to like wipe down my tent when it was muddy when I was packing it up or stuff like that. So I had one that was like that was cleaner to wipe myself down, and then I had one like for gear and stuff. You could also carry a bandana. I did have a bandana at first, which I liked just fine, but I lost it, I think, at some point, so this worked just as good. I carried a very tiny little lightweight wallet. I just kept my like medical card and debit card and license and a little bit of cash in here. Extra little things on my pack. I did have like a little pouch that I bought. This is from Z-Packs that has like a mesh pocket on the front of the pouch. So I kept my sunglasses in here. These are the actual sunglasses that I carried with me on the whole trail. They are $10 sunglasses. I don't know how they didn't break. There's like some cracks in them, but they never actually broke. Freaking bomb sunglasses. Anyway, so I kept these in this pouch, and then it also opens up here, so I usually kept my phone in there, so I had it like right on my chest. I also had a little bubble pin on compass. I'll be honest, I never really used a compass, but probably something you should have. Also on my pack, I had my AT tag, so this is for all the thru hikers. When you register to start your hike, you get one of those, and it's got your number on it, although mine has worn off, but it was 1833. That's on a little carabiner. And then I had a couple extra carabiners on this little loop here. That's what I put my Crocs, I would clip to it. And then sometimes, like if I had wet clothes or something that I was trying to hang to dry out, I would clip it to that. I was super meticulous in how I packed all my stuff every day. Everything always went in its exact place, or like I tell Luke, everything has a home. So I never lost anything, never had a hard time digging stuff out if I needed to find something. So I'm gonna pack up my shit so you can see. Okay, so here is how everything fits inside the pack. At the bottom of my pack is my clothes, sleeping bag and sleeping pad in the next layer. In the little mesh pocket is where my first aid and my books go on the inside. Next goes my food. This is usually really heavy. It's not right now because there's no food in it. But I feel like this goes best in the middle of the pack. It distributes the weight the best way. On top of my food, I put my tent. It's important to have this towards the top so that if it's raining, you can get to it quickly. On top of my tent, I would put all my small stuff. So my electronics bag, my toiletries bag, my poncho. Unless I knew it was gonna rain, then sometimes I'd put this on the outside pouch. And my gear cleaning towel. That's everything inside my pack. Now you just roll down the top. I'd keep my water in a side pouch, my water filter and bladder dirty bag in the other side pouch, toilet paper and sanitizer in the hip up pocket, wallet, in the other hip belt pocket. A sit pad just goes right on top of my pack. Rain jacket in the outside pouch. Crocs, clip to the outside. And then on this strap here, there's a little hole in this strap. I'm not really positive what it's for, but this is where I would keep my GoPro. And then carry your trekking poles. Although if I was like going into town or just didn't want to use my trekking poles for some reason, sometimes I'd put the water stuff in the back pouch and put these in the side pouch. So that is that. I also thought it'd be good to talk about some things that I did not bring at all or that I stopped carrying at some point that maybe some people do bring. So things I didn't carry at all, firstly, deodorant. I think most people don't on the trail. I don't know if it really would have helped. You just smell so bad, it just doesn't really do anything. Although I have to say, sometimes in town, I think, you know, you shower and then you go grocery shopping or whatever, and you just almost feel like you smell bad 10 minutes later, especially when it's hot out. So maybe I would have liked deodorant, to be honest, but most people don't carry it. I didn't carry it. It's not really worth the wait. Another thing I didn't carry was a trowel. Now, I did not use a single privy. To me, privies are gross. I think it's way more clean to just go somewhere in the woods. So usually people would carry a trowel in order to dig your cat hole with. I decided not to carry one in the beginning, so I just felt like it was kind of extra, that I probably wouldn't need it, and then I figured I could always just grab one if I did need it, but I never had an issue. I usually, on my way out into the woods to do my business, would find some sort of a flat rock and use that to dig a hole. Like I said, I never had an issue. Another thing I didn't carry that most people don't is bear spray. You will see black bears on the trail, but they're more scared of you than you are of them. It would have been comforting maybe at times to have bear spray, but it is very heavy and chances are you will not need it. Another thing I didn't carry was gloves. There were a few days where it was very cold and gloves would have been nice, but I carried at least 3 pairs of socks at all times, so I always had that option to use a pair of socks as, you know, to cover my hands if I needed to. I did do that a few times. One of those things, gloves are nice to have on occasion, but did I want to carry them when I usually wouldn't need them? No, I didn't feel like it. I also didn't carry a hat. I mean, my hair practically is a hat, plus I had a hood on my down jacket, so if I was really cold, I'd wear my hood. I also didn't bring liner socks. I, to be completely honest, still don't fully understand why liner socks are necessary, but my thought was I would go down without them, and then if I decided I need them for some reason, I would buy them, and I never had an issue with my feet or my socks or my shoes, so didn't have liner socks. I didn't bring gaiters. I mean, most people don't bring like the big bulky gaiters that you might need for like serious weather, mud conditions. But a lot of people did bring the dirty girl gaiters, which are the really little tiny ones just to keep some rocks and stuff out of your shoes. There were certain areas where it might have been nice, but I just didn't feel like it was necessary, and I got along fine without them. I didn't carry a pack cover because the Hyperlight packs are waterproof. We talked about that. I didn't carry a stove. I mentioned that. I also didn't carry a pillow. A lot of people bring like a little blow up pillow or something that weighs nothing. You totally could do that. I usually just use my jacket or even just the sleeping bag itself for a little extra cushion, although I got plenty of hair. Some things that I carried at one time that I didn't end up with by the end. I did have a full like long sleeve and legging pair of like long underwear. I wore it a little bit in the beginning kind of as a sleep outfit, kept me warm at night, and then decided to send it home. Didn't really need it in the first place and definitely didn't need it when it was warm out. I also carried at times sunblock and bug spray. The sunblock I used every once in a while, but in reality you're under tree cover most of the time, so it wasn't super necessary. And bug spray was totally necessary at certain points along the trail, but not the whole time. So I didn't go down with it initially. I bought it when I decided I needed it for a while, and then I got rid of it when I feel like it wasn't necessary anymore. I also carried a sports bra for a while, but not the whole time. For some people that will be an absolute necessity. For me, I don't have a whole lot going on, and it just seemed like one extra thing that was gross and dirty, so I almost never wore a sports bra. Okay, so there you have it. There is my gear that I ended up using on the AT. There's not necessarily a right or wrong for gear. It's just what works best for you, and this is what worked for me. So I'm sure I'm gonna hear some opinions on some things, and that is fine. Love to hear your feedback. I know a lot of you are probably interested in the gear that Luke used on the trail. I did mention his tent. He also had a hyperlight pack. We used a lot of similar things, but definitely some different things from each other. So hopefully I can run through his gear with him at some point and do a video on that for you guys, just to give you another perspective. I know this was kind of like a quick overview of everything, so if you have any questions or want me to go more into detail about any specific categories of things or items, I'd be happy to do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me in the future, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.